We're in September and it's harvest season, so I'm gonna harvest these container potatoes I have here. I did grow some in ground that I planted last year in the fall, but in the spring, I believe in May, I planted these in 5 gallon buckets. So it's September now, and I am digging in to see what they produced. In my experience, planting in containers produced less than what I planted in ground in a raised bed. So we'll see again how this does. But that does not mean that I'm going to stop growing these potatoes in containers, simply because it's an opportunity to double my production. So this variety here is the Adirondack Blue potato that I planted in May. That's what the tag says. So I'm gonna go ahead and empty all the buckets. I believe I planted a couple other varieties also, but we'll see. I don't remember clearly. So all these buckets, 5 gallon buckets and pots here. I think this is a 3 gallon one. Let's see what we got inside. And I just tucked them in there because, it was just a space that I can also grow in. And when you're growing food, you're going to grow whatever you have available to you, you're going to grow your food there. All right, so let's see. We got a few small ones, but they'll taste good. And these here are also Adirondack Blue. Yep, that's what the tag says. And I have probably about 5 or 6. There's one here. There's a few more over here. So I have like 6 or 7 buckets that I need to harvest. Now I'm just going to remove all the bushes that have died back from these potatoes. Oh, this is a weed right here, not potatoes. But this has died back really well, and we've gotten so much rain, and I'm hoping that we don't have any rotten potatoes in here. So let me just see what we got here. Okay, so this looks like the Pontiac Red. I don't have a tag in there, but those are really good bearers. These are tiny ones. Huh. Yeah, these ones seems quite a bit tiny. Okay, there's a bigger size. Yep, not too bad. So I'm just going to go through and make sure I get every single one of them because they're, oh yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. They're coming. Not as big as I would like them, but it's food. And I'm out here in the dark trying to harvest these potatoes. I keep putting it off, and I'm like, you know what? Let me just go out there and do this here tonight. So I'm out here in the dark. The mosquitoes are out, and they are stinging me. They're buzzing all over. So I gotta be quick. Now I cure these potatoes before I store them up in a cold place, and that's because the skins are so tender when they're freshly harvested that you don't want them to bruise. So this is just what I do. I cure them first for a couple weeks on my drying rack, and that way the skin gets nice and tight and it's not easily bruised. And then I store it in a cool dark place to be used up over the winter months. And when I don't use it all up, I just save these as seed potatoes so I can plant the following spring. Now we got some good sizes going here. So this is going to be a nice haul from these containers. And the soil, I repurpose the soil and I add chicken compost with it. I use some of this soil, I use some chicken compost, and I use some of my native soil, and I mix it all together to create a nutritious soil to be growing my food in for the next season. All right, now on to the next, and I'm doing this with one hand as you can see because I'm obviously trying to film this with my other hand. Is this a potato? Nope, that's a rock. Okay, so now we got some more potatoes in here. Oh yeah. Why is this all twinned up like that? They're conjoined. But they got little tiny potatoes in there that will be nice and tender. Buttery to the taste, I'm sure. Or I can also use those as seed potatoes if I don't use them up like I said. But I'm making a really nice haul of potatoes from all these buckets, and I think I have total probably like 8, I would say 7 or 8 buckets. And yeah, they're looking pretty good, decent, because I do have some potatoes already stored up that I harvested earlier in the spring, in the summer, sorry. There's an earthworm. An earthworm made its way in. Look at this size. That's a huge one. This red Pontiac is usually a really good potato that I've been growing for years, so it's good. And I'm going to go through the soil because I'm pretty sure I'm going to find little potatoes in there somewhere. So I'm going through it really carefully because sometimes they just spring up wherever they feel like it because they're already hidden in there. And my potato bed that I harvested from this earlier in the year, I already seen potatoes already sprung up from it because I didn't harvest all of it, not intentionally. Some was left in there, so it grew up again there. I'm probably gonna leave it to go all winter because I'm planning again to plant potatoes in the fall and allow them to grow so I can have an early harvest in the summer next season. So I'm able to harvest two different sets of potatoes and double my production. I plant one in the fall and the next one in the spring. So that works out great for me. And this is just how I did it this year. It doesn't guarantee you that I'm going to have the same practice every year because things change and the need for a certain amount of certain foods change as you grow a garden. Sometimes you may grow in abundance of a certain plant one year and the next year you may not. So for me, it differs from year to year, the amount of certain foods that I would want to grow. Now, don't get me wrong, potatoes are any ground food that you can actually cure and store up for long term. It's a good survival food to grow. So this is the reason why I grow things like potatoes, pumpkins, winter pumpkins, all different varieties, because I don't necessarily need anything such as refrigeration or canning. I don't have to do all that to preserve it. I did a video earlier in the year where I stored up and I showed that video and I cut it open just to demonstrate to you that it's perfectly fine after 8 months of storing up butternut squash. So potatoes would also work. The only thing is that it would probably send out some nodules and start growing, but those you can also use as seed potatoes to plant for future growing. And for the people that don't have space to grow, let's say like land, if you're in an apartment and you have a balcony, you can actually use containers or buckets to grow root crops in. It works. So don't allow the thought of not having land deter you from growing your own food because it's really possible. As you can see here, these are just in buckets. Yes, it's in my backyard, but if you have a nice sunny balcony, you can go ahead and give it a shot. I hope you did learn something from this video and you feel inspired to go ahead and try growing some food and be innovative and use the space you have, because you may not have a lot of space, but you may have some space that you can work with. Get some 5-gallon buckets, some 3-gallon buckets, get some containers and try growing some food in it. And don't let the thought of you not having land per se deter you from growing your food. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again on the next video right here on Fifi's Journey.